Hello and welcome to the Green 19 podcast. I'm Dominique Yates. I'm joined by Ryan Wood and Tom Silverstein. So the Packers are getting ready for their second straight road game facing the Dallas Cowboys for Sunday Night Football. And no reason to bury the lead. Micah Parsons is returning to Dallas, where he started off a really good career. And obviously it hasn't even been a month since he's been back in Green Bay. And And Ryan, you had the chance to talk to some people that know him best. You know, what is the feelings from everyone as they are preparing for a game that could be, pretty interesting this Sunday?
Can we take a step back for a second real quick? How did we coordinate this? Look at us. We're all three wearing black shirts today. It's a total blackout for this week, right? No, that's neither here nor there. It's just what's in my head. I get lost on tangents. If you're wondering if it's a personal week, you have to go back to the night he was drafted. A lot of players go into the NFL draft just hoping to get drafted, hoping to get drafted as early as possible, first round pick, all those things. And not like Micah Parsons wasn't like that, right? I mean, he knows that money's at stake. What made Micah Parsons different, his dream was to play for the Dallas Cowboys. His father grew up a Dallas Cowboys fan. It's all Micah Parsons knew. Growing up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, was not a Steelers fan. He loved the Dallas Cowboys. And so, as fate would have it, 12th overall 2021 NFL draft, when the Cowboys are on the clock, he's telling his friends, his family, anyone, he's saying, if it's Dallas, I'm crying. Like that, he really, really, really wanted that team specifically. Gets that team. Jerry Jones asks him when he's drafted Micah, you don't think this is too big for you, do you? Which is obviously absurd given the 4 years that he had in Dallas, where he became one of their greatest pass rushers of all time. Only the second player ever to have a dozen sacks in each of his first 4 seasons, joining Reggie White. And then he gets traded. And there will be no tribute video, which, make of that what you will. I think 4 years is probably not long enough to have a tribute. Exactly. That's not 4 years is not a career make, assuming he plays out the totality of this contract in Green Bay and all the things that they're expecting. He's probably going to be known more as a Packer than a Cowboy anyway at the end of his career. But he is on a Hall of Fame trajectory. It started in Dallas. He closed on his home in mid-June. So even before the trade request, even as this was going on, there's a standstill between him and the team over the contract dispute. He's still wanting to be in Dallas. He wants to get paid, but he wants to get paid by Dallas. Mm-hmm. They decide no. They trade him, and now he's going back 4 weeks later to the home that he still has a suite in AT&T Stadium. Like this is the home that really he embraced and he wanted to be at. It's going to be a very personal week.
It is going to be, and obviously those are just a few nuggets, and this full story that Ryan had, it is on Packers News, so be sure to check that out. And one thing that I found fascinating, not from the Parsons side of things, because you said they were candid, including his brother, his trainer, a lot of people had a lot of insights into this, and because of that, you have to imagine there's going to be some emotions, and these are also competitors. So Parsons is going to want to win. He wants to sack Dak. He wants to do all of those things. So I found it interesting, Spoon, that LaFleur, he said he's not really concerned about the emotional side of it. Again, I found that kind of fascinating.
Yeah, I'm sure he's going to be super hyped up, but he was super hyped up to play his first game here. Mm-hmm. And after a while, it just becomes, I think he said it best, once a game gets started, nobody's talking about the trade. They're talking about, how to win the game or what's going on the field. I am sure he will have to, it's natural. He's going to have to really, really be careful not to get too high and not to, blow all his energy in the first 5 minutes of the game or whatever. Yeah. It's funny you talk about that draft. I remember talking to someone then, and the Cowboys really wanted Patrick Surtain. They were really looking for a corner in that draft because their secondary was terrible. And they sort of lucked into Micah Parsons, And I mean, that's kind of a nice fallback if you're not going to get the guy, you really are targeting. But it's also like, well, if they had Surtain, they probably would have gotten a contract done, and he'd still be there. And you have to wonder. That's why draft stuff is so, intriguing and interesting, because it changes everything. But they got 4 really good years out of what was he, the number 12 pick?
Yeah.
It was, yeah. Yeah, and so what were some of the are there any other interesting takeaways that you got when kind of constructing this Parsons story? And again, just talking to people around him, because everything he's done in the interviews and just even in interactions in the locker room, it's like, okay, he seems like a really good guy, good quotes, all of those things. But again, we don't know him like his trainers and like his brother and all of these people. Were there any other interesting nuggets and takeaways from just anything with Parsons?
Yeah, to Spoon's point, they didn't get Pat Surtain, but they did get Deron Bland, and he got re-signed after Micah Parsons was traded away. As far as what went down in this whole ordeal, it's been well documented, obviously. But a significant part of this is that after their March meeting, Micah Parsons' market continues to go up, right? Because the pass rush market continues to escalate. It was very clear that a big part of the standoff was over the structure, the guaranteed portion of the salary. And that's something that agents are hired to negotiate. Like, that's where agents come in, is when contracts are structured. Micah Parsons wanted his agent to be part of this deal to provide the best structure, not just the salary, but the structure, especially the guaranteed portion of the contract that he could get. One of the things that really seemed to pin Jerry Jones in a corner, and it's believed that it wasn't about the total salary, it was about the cash out of pocket up front. Because of the NFL's funding rule, when you guarantee future salary in future years beyond the first year, that money that's guaranteed in future years goes into an escrow. You have to pay it up front. For the Packers, they ended up putting about $78 million of the $120 million that was guaranteed in Micah Parsons' deal into an escrow account. The Cowboys had done that a year prior with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, of which in their guaranteed portion combined about $78 million went into an escrow fund. So it's not always just about the money as a total contract, a total salary. A lot of times it is about cash out of pocket up front. And that's a lot of money. As his brother said, he understands, like, that is a lot of cash out of pocket for any one person to pay. In their case, it's Jerry Jones' own money. It's not a fund that the Packers have organizationally. So that was certainly a part of this. As far as, his longtime trainer, Lance Dean, said the trade was a fresh air for Micah Parsons. It was something that the opportunity to get a second start. Things didn't always go well in Dallas. As dominant as he was on the field, that's a soap opera climate down there at the Star. That is, and oftentimes when you come in and you're automatically day one, before you even practice, the most talented guy in the locker room, which is what Micah Parsons was. He had 13 sacks his rookie year. He was second in AP Defensive Player of the Year, voting behind TJ Watt as a rookie. When you are that guy right away, it doesn't mean that you're ready to be that leader right away. He's still a 22-year-old kid, and he had to learn how to lead. He spent the past 4 years doing that, and what we've seen from Micah Parsons since the trade was him knowing that there's this fresh air, knowing it's a second opportunity after spending 4 years learning how to lead and wanting to be very intentional with how he came into this locker room. I find it fascinating that for years the Packers rigorously stuck to a draft and develop model that's really changed in the past year with Josh Jacobs and Xavier McKinney coming in last year, two guys who established themselves and came to a new team. Aaron Banks got top money from this, coming from the San Francisco 49ers this spring. They have a locker room now with guys who have made the transition that Micah Parsons has done, getting traded to a new team 1 week before the season. That climate certainly helped make this transition. And then he came in and Xavier McKinney said at one of the first team meetings, he finds a row with Xavier McKinney, Keyshawn Nixon, Nate Hobbs, Rashawn Gary's there. He said Josh Jacobs was there too. And he turns to him and says, sit on the routes. And Xavier McKinney's like, what do you mean? And he's like, I'm getting there. Sit on the routes. And this wasn't bragging. I mean, you see the first 3 games, he gets there. Like, yeah, you sit on the routes with Micah Parsons. He gets to the quarterback. Josh Jacobs said that the very first practice rep, they had good on that Monday after the trade. And say what you want about the back injury or not the back injury, but that very first practice rep, he blows off the line of scrimmage. They're all like, whoa. Like, he showed right away what he's about, and he's taken it very intentionally. Go back to the loss in Cleveland. Yes, the defense is dominant. He has 2 penalties, one of which an offsides on the Browns' game-winning drive. He stands at his locker room. You could put that loss on so many other places. He said, no, put it on me. Like, these are things he's doing to be intentional and trying to really make the most out of the second opportunity he has with the Packers.
Tom, what have been your early observations on how Jeff Hafley and the defense have used Parsons? They moved him around quite a bit, inside, outside, linebacker. What have been just the early observations of it?
Yeah, well, I think they actually haven't done nearly as much as they probably will as the season goes on. I think he's only lined up off the ball in the middle of the field like twice, maybe the whole year, maybe 3 times, something like that. They sometimes try to put a guy outside of him, like Lucas Van Ness or something, just to try to keep blockers off him. But it's pretty much a given he's going to be double teamed. I mean, it's the same as Myles Garrett. You have a game plan to make sure Micah Parsons doesn't absolutely kill you. I even wonder if Hafley thought after the Cleveland game whether he should have done more in order to try to force some kind of a big play. Now, everything came down to the last 5 minutes of the game. And so at that point, he's just like, well, we got a 10-point lead. Let's just hold the lead. But, you never know how things are going. And I wonder if I'm kind of interested to ask Hafley this, if it's time to just be more aggressive with him. Right now, they're lining him up outside, and they try to get him some one-on-ones if they can. But really, it's like the other people are benefiting the most. Rashawn Gary's benefiting. He still gets chipped a lot, but I don't know. They haven't had to blitz, and it's really hard to pass on them because they never ever have to blitz. Yeah. And they can rush 4 guys and give pressure. So I don't think we've seen quite, even a little bit of what he can do with him.
Yeah, I think that's something that stood out, and considering how the defense has played through the first 3 games. But in terms of, quote-unquote, the concern, some of the things to watch, it is the offense right now. I mean, we talked about it after the game, and even when you go back and watch some of the plays and moments in that game, it's just where is that moment, that play where you kind of end the game. And there's several examples, even the Matthew Golden situation, and we talked to him in the locker room on Wednesday about the 30-plus yard catch, nothing but grass in front of him. And it was interesting to hear him explain that whole situation. He said that he thought the safety was closer, and so he went out of bounds. He said if I could have it back, I would keep going. That's just one play of many plays. From you, when you look at this offense, and then I'll go to you next, Spoon, just what has stood out in terms of, I guess, what's missing right now from that group?
Well, first of all, on the Matthew Golden catch, I'm curious to get your guys' perspective on this, because watching it live, the thought of he should have kept going upfield did not cross my mind. I'm not saying it shouldn't have, but it didn't cross my mind. Like, that was Jordan Love's throwing from his end zone. It's a huge play to get out of the shadow of your end zone. Like, it just kind of, to me, watching it live, felt like, okay, they accomplished what they needed here in this one play to get away from the end zone and get some breathing room. Like, did you think, watching live, he should have turned that upfield? He should not have gone out of bounds. That was a clear boneheaded mistake.
Yeah, I remember writing in the blog that I couldn't believe he didn't put his foot down and plant and just go. And if you look at the sidelines afterwards, I think Kingsley Enagbari was the most shocked. Yeah. There were several guys who were like, oh, turn that upfield. Yeah. I think it's probably, it's part of being a rookie, maybe part of Him wanting to make sure he has the ball. It looked like he might have juggled just a little bit. But, boy, he has to learn that every play is got to be considered a home run play. I mean, all plays are designed to be home run balls. And he had a chance to turn that game, in the Packers' favor if he could just plant his right foot where it was and go. And it was sort of startling to me because this is a guy with 4.29 speed. And I'm thinking, if he just gets, a little room on a guy, he's gone. So I think he learned his lesson. But, yeah, I was totally shocked at it at the time.
Yeah.
I have to cop to it because I didn't think of it in the moment. And I should have, but I didn't. It's reminiscent a little bit of Luke Musgrave as a rookie, right? When he gets a deep ball and just stay on your feet, guy. Okay, good catch, but you got to stay on your feet. And it's kind of, I wonder if some of that is just when you are a rookie, it is a big play, wanting to make dang sure that you make the most elemental part of that play and that you're kind of over focused on that part of it.
Yeah, and you think about it, sometimes young guys play things by the numbers. So they paint by the numbers. So this is a corner route. It's meant to go right to the corner. He gets a nice gain, and you go out of bounds. And that's kind of how the play is. Mm-hmm. But you don't often get a step on Denzel Ward, and all of a sudden you've got the whole sideline there.
Yeah.
And so maybe it just kind of surprised him a little bit.
That was my thing. At first glance, I thought maybe his momentum was pushing him out, and he probably thought he was closer to the sideline than expected.
Yeah.
But then also it's like, hold on, is Denzel Ward not with me? And you see nothing but grass in front of you. So he might have been startled a little bit.
I thought about that momentum too, and then I just watched it again, and I'm just wait a minute.
That's what I was thinking live, was that I felt like his momentum took him out of bounds. But, yeah, I mean, if you look at the replay, there was an opportunity there to pick up more yards. It was pretty clear. I didn't think of that in the moment. So he clearly didn't think of it in the moment either. I'm just saying, I'll cop out to it. He wasn't the only one. I was there too, and then you see it on tape, and you're like, oh. To your question about what's missing, let's just be real. We don't have to use it as an excuse, because it's not an excuse, but it is fact. Health on the offensive line is missing. No question about that. Now, injuries on the offensive line is not a reason to play poorly on the offensive line. Anyone that comes in is an NFL player and is expected to play to that standard, and they have not, especially in Cleveland. But you can't tell me it doesn't matter when the one game they've had this season with a healthy offensive line was against the Detroit Lions, and that same defense just sacked Lamar Jackson 7 times on Monday night. That does matter. They have to figure out a way to handle that, the attrition there, much better than they have, because they've not handled it well. And this is a team that spent, before the Micah Parsons trade, the entire offseason trying to build up its depth on the offensive line. Really, I think, knowing that it would get tested this season, because they had all 5 starters play over 1,000 snaps last year, and that's not something you ever expect. You certainly never expect it to happen twice in a row. So they're not surprised, I don't think, that their depth has been tested. They tried to build up for that. We just haven't seen the fruits of that labor yet. I think that, without question, it had an effect on Jordan Love in that game. From Tom Brady to Patrick Mahomes on down, the recipe for rattling any quarterback is to harass them relentlessly. Jordan Love was sacked 5 times in the first 3 quarters. Only the second time he's ever been sacked 5 times in a game. No question that had you saw that in the fourth quarter. The rush got to him, not just physically, but between the ears in a way that you just rarely see with him specifically. He has to be better too. I think as far as Jordan Love is concerned, I stand by. I know I think disagree on how well he played for the totality a little bit. I think he handled the most part, the 4 quarters, fairly well, considering the rush that was just relentlessly coming at him. But what did Brian Gutekunst say immediately after the season? He was asked, where is this next step for him going in his 3rd year as a starter? And Brian Gutekunst said, it's in the winning moments, those situations when the game is on the line, coming up with the right play. The first clear situation like that this season, he telegraphs a pass to Dontavian Wicks in the middle slant, Grant Delpit reads the eyes and is an easy pick with the game in the balance. That can't happen. That is the area where, according to Brian Gutekunst, that he is supposed to be taking a jump this season, and we didn't see that in Cleveland. He needs to be able to pull off those plays and those moments for this team to get to where it needs to go.
Yeah. Spoon, anything just, offensively for you?
Yeah, I think they've been off since the very start of the season. I think even against Detroit, I thought they pass protected really well. I think they were really lucky that Aiden Hutchinson was playing the first game and since his catastrophic broken leg, and you can see he's a different player. He was a different player this past week than he was against the Packers. He wasn't that hard to block against the Packers. But if you remember, they haven't run the ball well in all three games, and that's their bread and butter. Everything works off of their run game, and so they're not running the ball that well. They didn't run it that well when their offensive line was healthy, and then I just sort of feel like their passing game, there's just something missing. I keep going back to Jaden Reed. He didn't play much in the first game. And then the second game, he started to have an impact. And then they lose him. And then all of a sudden, I just kind of feel like their offense is a little toothless. They don't have, guys that Love can totally count on. Now, I think Dontavian Wicks is trying to prove that he can be that guy, and he's made some strides towards that. But until they can run the ball, everything LaFleur does is based off of running the ball on early downs and play action and going deep off of play action. And Jim Schwartz said it before the game. He's like, we can't let them get the ball running, because once they start running it, then all that play action works, and then they're just throwing it down the field, and you're in trouble. And they did such a good job of shutting the run down. I don't know. LaFleur's got to figure that out. And yeah, it doesn't help to not have two linemen, but he still has to figure it out.
Yeah,
there's got to be a way to get Josh Jacobs going.
The bottom line, whether it's the run or the pass game, whether they're healthy or not, is that if the offensive line does not play better, it's going to be tough. Like they just have to play better up front. They're loading the box against the run. You still got to win your blocks. Okay, your receivers are having a hard time winning matchups one-on-one downfield. You still got to give the quarterback time for those routes to develop. Like I feel like so much of their struggles come from an offensive line that needs to play better. And Spoon, Elton Jenkins told you, right? Like he couldn't have been more candid about his own play. And it's not like here's the thing, for as candid as he was, and I know you'll share it, but as candid as he was, it's not just on him. No. Everyone's struggling on that offensive line. They need to be better.
But I think there was a point. I think he was, he was standing up and saying, okay, I'm taking accountability for my play. I'm not talking about your guys' play. I am talking about the line's play as a whole. It wasn't good enough. But I think he's standing up and trying to be an example and saying to some of these guys like Jordan Morgan and Rasheed Walker, hey, you got to hold your own. You're in. Just because a guy goes out doesn't mean that you're not expected to hold your own. And I have to say that, Anthony Belton came in the second half, and he held his own. He played pretty good on the right side. And I'm willing to bet, I asked LaFleur and he wouldn't say, but I'm willing to bet that if Zach Tom doesn't play, and he probably won't, that Belton is the starter. Because he's the one guy who, he played and he wasn't perfect, but he didn't get destroyed. And those other guys made stupid mistakes and they got destroyed.
Did you see the clip on social media with Myles Garrett and Rasheed Walker?
Yeah.
When that's what your offensive line's doing, when that's what kind of play you're getting from your left tackle, you're not going to be good offensively.
No.
Your plan of attack can't be turning around and telling Jordan to run.
And if you're going to tell people that you got a chance to go undefeated and you're facing Myles Garrett then that week, that's not the smartest thing to say. And maybe say that when you're getting ready to face, an undrafted rookie, who's
Dallas,
a
maybe.
third string, guy. Yeah, I mean Dante Fowler maybe, but. Yeah, you don't do that to Myles Garrett, and he paid the price for that.
And they talked about it on the side. Myles Garrett was telling the team, it's like, and they were like, oh, it was him? And it was like, it was him.
Yeah, and also, like I said, and it doesn't help after the game in the locker room, you decline comment.
Yeah, stand up. I mean, I understand Walker probably doesn't ever want to talk to the media again because what he said was so dumb.
Yeah.
But I think that's what Jenkins was doing on Wednesday, sitting at his locker, available, willing to talk about how bad he was playing. Like, okay, this is accountability.
Yeah.
And what did Matt LaFleur call that this morning? He said that was a mature response. I mean, he really praised Elton Jenkins for taking that self-critical approach because he said if you don't do that, you're not going to get better.
Right.
Like that stuff does matter.
That's true. And again, it stood out after the game because, we all do stories and angles after the game. I was working on the O-line, went up to Walker. He said no. Morgan said no. Belton and Jenkins both said yes to interviews. And again, that's impressive for a rookie.
Sean Ryan is always available.
And Sean Ryan talked
too.
as well, yeah.
Aaron Banks was hurt.
Right.
They need to get those guys back, and then Morgan and Walker have to figure out, if they're going to be great players.
Yeah.
Because they're not right now.
Yeah.
And Walker wants to get paid. He's been a starting left tackle for 3 years, but you can't be going false starts in the worst moments. And Jordan Morgan's a first rounder, and he wants to play left tackle. Well, here's a quarter. Nobody cares. You're going to have to play guard. I mean, sorry, you have to, and you have to block on extra points and field goals.
Yeah.
So there's a lot, I'll be interested to see how they react. It won't be as intense going against the Dallas defense this week.
And what we haven't even talked about? Like, it's one thing to lose your matchups. I mean, sometimes you are going to have to block Myles Garrett, and he'll beat you because he's Myles Garrett. Like, that can happen. How many false starts were there? 5? Like, not knowing the snap count. Matt LaFleur was saying how the operation in and out of the huddle it was lethargic. It wasn't what it needs to be. The urgency and the substitutions off the sidelines, like those things don't need to happen. Sometimes you're going to lose to Myles Garrett. That's one thing. You have to be crisp in all the things you can control, and they were not. And it's one thing you just lose your matchup, but to compound it with focus issues and urgency issues is really I think that's the most inexcusable part.
And and we've talked about this a lot. This is a team that has played a lot of football now.
Yeah.
Like, these aren't rookies anymore. These aren't young guys. Like, if it's a Matthew Golden or a Belton that makes some of those type of mistakes in a game, again, you live with it because it's rookies. But some of the operational stuff, I just thought it would be a little bit more crisp. I know it's early in the season, but it's still something that's very interesting to me. And
that's where I wonder where we might have seen them feeling themselves a little bit, right? Where maybe it's enough just to show up because the focus isn't there, and then you get humbled. And now going forward, it's on them to make sure that never happens again, that every single week you are focused, you are locked in, not just on game day, during practice. I mean, a lot of guys in the locker room said they felt like they had a good week of practice, but it didn't translate, right? Matt LaFleur has been very clear that they're going to have to be more ardent on penalties, on procedural stuff during the week of practice. So we'll see if that pays off, if that translates to Sunday night.
Yeah, I guess the big thing to bounce off of that, Spoon, your column kind of summed it up. It was very foolish to be crowning Super Bowl champs after 2 weeks into the season. But even in comparison, I think we talked about this, looked up the past Super Bowl champs. Last season at this time, Eagles were 2-2. A couple years ago, the Chiefs were 0-1. They lost to a Colts team that fired its head coach in 2022. So just you could say already have knowing what's going to happen at the end of the season so early, is pretty ridiculous. And Spoon just, what kind of went into even that column and just thoughts on that?
Well, just if you take the time to look at the circumstances of those first two games, it is that's why we talked about that here. The first couple weeks are kind of meaningless in terms of what they mean about the season as a whole. Now, winning those two games was important for obvious tiebreaker reasons, but they weren't as dominant as I think we gave them credit for, and there were circumstances. Detroit had two new coordinators. Hutchinson wasn't up to his best. They had They had totally retooled their offensive line, and those three guys in the middle were totally inexperienced, and they paid for that. Washington, if you remember, they were losing guys left and right in that game. Dietrich Wise got hurt, Eckler got hurt, their right guard got hurt. And even Jaden Daniels got hurt, and then we find out later that he can't play the next week. I remember him limping around thinking, well, that's not good. It's just that's just the way it is, and there's you have to take those games with hey, they won it. Their defense looks really good. Their offense was okay, but crowning them or, making more of reading too much into that, it's such a long season. God, you just know there's going to be a letdown. And that Browns game, the thing I think that really hurts them is that when you become like a Super Bowl, if you're going to be a Super Bowl team, you win the games. You still find a way to win games where you're getting outplayed. Even if you play crappy, you find some way to pull the game out. You block a field goal like, the Philadelphia Eagles did against the Rams. They blocked 2 field goals. So somehow one part if your offense stinks, then 2 of your other parts gotta find a way to do it. And the Packers just are not there yet. And they might be at the end of the year, they might be at the middle of the year, but they're not there right now.
Similarly, while you don't make too much out of big wins early in the season,
right,
you don't make too much out of big losses or bad losses early in the season too.
Yeah.
And to your point, Dominique, it's a point that Micah Parsons made in Cleveland in the locker room, which is you look at Super Bowl champs, a lot of times early in the season they have bad losses. October 10th, 2010, Spoon, I'm sure you probably remember this game. The Packers go to Washington. They get up 10-0. They're playing a quarterback well past his prime. It was Donovan McNabb. And they give up that lead. Aaron Rodgers gets sacked 4 times. He has an interception in overtime that really swings the game, right?
Andrew Michael Finley got hurt.
That's the same day, right? And Washington finished that season 6-10. They were not a good team. The Packers had a lead, couldn't protect the quarterback. Quarterback has a bad mistake. They lose 16-13. The next week, they actually lost in overtime at the Miami Dolphins. And Miami finishes that season 7-9. What did the 2010 Packers do? Yeah. They won the Super Bowl. It does not mean that the 2025 Packers will do that. What it means is you don't really know in September what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think what we do know is that this Packers roster is very talented. I think we know they have a great defense. I mean, there's no question about that. We have no idea where it's going from here. And there's been really big wins and a bad loss. They don't mean much in the totality of what this season will bring or not bring. We'll just have to figure that out.
Yeah, and get into Sunday against the Dallas Cowboys. We haven't really talked much about the team as a whole. And yeah, I mean, they're not going to see a defense or a defensive line like they just saw with the Browns. You will get to see Kenny Clark. So we'll see, again, a run stopper. The Packers haven't been able to run the ball. You're going to see a run stopper in Kenny Clark. Just as a whole, what do you make of just the Cowboys and just the team at 1-2 right now?
They're a high-scoring team that can't stop anybody. That's basically what they are. And then they're going to be without CeeDee Lamb, their best wide receiver. So that's, and they lost their right guard, Tyler Booker, and they're without their starting center, so they're like on their number 3 or 4 interior linemen. They got a lot of issues. Who knows? They could come out and play their butts off. Deron Bland, who you talked about, is back this week. He's key to their secondary, but they don't have much of a pass rush without Micah Parsons. They have a bunch of second-level guys who the Packers should be able to block, and there's no reason they shouldn't walk out with a victory. They're catching the Cowboys at the right time. Yeah. So that's about all I have to say about the Cowboys at this point.
The Cowboys defense, here's some irony for you. Over his 4 years in Dallas, what's the one criticism that seemed to really land on Micah Parsons when it came to his play? It was the run defense, right? Micah Parsons' response to that was always, hey, I'm an elite pass rusher. Get me an elite defensive tackle. Give me someone to pair me inside, please. And the irony of Jerry Jones's ultimate solution there being bringing in Kenny Clark to trade away Micah Parsons, who now has in this defense everything he always wanted in Dallas. He has a disruptive defensive tackle in Devontae Wyatt. He has speed all around him on all levels. And he's got that inside presence.
He's got other pass rushers.
Yeah, he's not the only guy.
Gary and Van Ness is starting to come through, and Wyatt. He's got a lot of guys up there that either he's setting them up or eventually, it'll open up for him too.
They're good. He's great. Together, it's been dominant. It's just such an indictment on the Cowboys and Jerry Jones's football management that was the ultimate solution. Hey, you saw for 3 games, and one of the things I am confident about, not much after last week, granted, you're going to see this Packers defense play well week in and week out. I have very little doubt about that. Maybe he was onto something. Maybe if you get an elite pass rusher, a really solid, productive inside presence, that can help.
Maybe so. At least, like you said, through the first few games, it's definitely looked like that. As we wrap up, I don't know what else. I don't know. I know we didn't touch on special teams, but I mean that's just not good enough.
We could talk another 15 minutes on that.
Exactly.
Well, as Spoon is saying, rightly so, that sometimes if you don't have it that week, you need to make a play. The Eagles came up with a game-winning field goal block. I'm thinking, boy, can the Packers ever this season rely on their special teams in a week like that? Like they're just not there, and that's a massive issue.
Yeah, because for me going into the Browns game, because we talked about the issues that the Browns have on special teams, in my head I was like, okay, maybe this is the get-right game for the special teams unit to have some confidence, have some success, and make something happen. It did not happen.
Oh, it wasn't.
And I find it fascinating, though, according to NFLpenalties.com, the Packers are tied for the 4th most penalized team in the NFL, 12 from offense, 10 on defense, 7 from special teams. Check my math. I think that's right. You can't have that many coming from special teams plus blocked field goals. So again, it's just a lot of major concerns from that.
Well, and the little bit of irony is that LaFleur should have relied on his special teams on that 3rd and 3 when he threw the interception. I hate conservative football. But when you have a really good defense and you have a punter that's averaging 50-some yards a game, a punt, and you have a chance to put a team down in its own 25 with how many minutes were left? Is 10-3, and they got to go 75 yards, 3 minutes left, and they have no timeouts. And at best, they're going down to probably tie the game. Play to your defense, play to your punter. And so, the special teams stunk, but your punter doesn't stink. Right. And so, I think that's LaFleur has to rethink about how he's going to call some games, because it's great to be aggressive, when you have a really high-powered offense, but sometimes you got to play to your defense too.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm going to die on this hill, and I am in the minority here. So I am not like, hey, no, this is absolute. I don't have a problem with Matt LaFleur throwing the ball on 3rd and 3. I think the message it sends to your team early in the season is important from the sideline. I think that when, it's similar to the interception Xavier McKinney had before halftime. Like, it ended up, I think there was 2 seconds left after he picked the ball. So it ended up not, like the Packers were going to have a Hail Mary if he doesn't. But they have a better chance to make something happen maybe if he doesn't pick the ball. But what makes Xavier McKinney great is that he sees the ball in the air and it's his ball. Like, there's no thought about anything other than going to get the ball. What makes a head coach great and what allows them to get to this level of position is when you're staring down a 3rd and 3 and you know that that's the ball game right there. You don't even worry about the defense. I mean, one timeout left for the Browns. You're 1 first down away from winning. Go get 3 yards, right? Josh Jacobs averaged 1.9 yards per carry. They weren't getting 3 yards with Josh Jacobs.
Well, he wasn't in the game. Chris Harris was in the game.
Sure, but
and they
still,
were spread out.
There's a reason.
They did have the safety down and way down in the box. So, yeah, they probably wouldn't have gotten it. I mean, there was a very good chance they wouldn't have gotten it. But even if they didn't, when your offense is playing like crap, maybe take that into consideration.
I hear you.
And
I hear you. I just think he's thinking, go get 3 yards and the game's over. And you're not expecting your quarterback to telegraph the pass. Like that can't, because you look at that play, Jordan Love never even looked at Tucker Kraft. Yeah. That's why Grant Delpit peeled off. I mean, Grant Delpit's first step after the snap was to track Tucker Kraft. But as his feet are doing that, his eyes are squarely on the quarterback, who's not even looking at Tucker Kraft, is telegraphing to Dontavian Wicks, and Grant Delpit just makes a beeline. And at the last moment, you can see like Jordan Love kind of recognized it and tried to throw a dirt ball. I mean, it took a lot of steam, but it ended up being a catch it if you can, like a simple put it on a tee for you interception. That's the part to me that cannot happen. Use your eyes, open something up. Throwing for a 3rd and 3 when your run game has been nothing all day, knowing that ends the game, I don't have a problem with him doing that.
Yeah, honestly, I saw how much success Jordan was having running the ball.
Yeah,
I would have went there.
There's where we can maybe all come together and say, and you made the point after the game, Spoon, the RPO, right?
Mm-hmm.
That might have been, because then you force him to call time and you don't put the ball in the air. It's creativity, and it was work. I can come to that.
Yeah, but again, it's part of also being early in the season, and again, it's going to be crucial for Matt LaFleur as the season wears on to figure out the identity of this team. Yeah. Is it just a defensive-minded team, so you have to play more to the clock, or will your offense score? That's going to be what he'll have to figure out as this season continually moves along, because right now it's defense. The offense isn't there, special teams isn't there, so we'll see what happens as, again, things just kind of continually move along. Any final words as we prepare for Dallas, guys, and we wrap up this podcast?
How many sacks does Micah Parsons get Sunday night?
Well, I'm sure they're going to make sure that he's blocked.
By multiple people.
Pretty true. I'm going to go 1.5.
Okay.
Dang it, you took my number.
Did I?
Yeah, so I'll just say 1 sack.
I'm going to say
exactly.
at least 2, maybe 3. I think he's going to have a huge game. If you look at his totality of his Cowboys career, he played 63 regular season games with the Cowboys. 14 times he had at least 2 sacks. That's 22%. This is his 4th game, about a quarter. This is his 4th game this season. He has not had 2 sacks in a game yet. That's been his standard throughout his career. I think you're looking at a multiple sack game from him.
It wouldn't be crazy if it happened either, because there's going to be emotion in this game. So that's the one thing again, as we mentioned earlier, I'm curious what his emotions will be like. Will he keep them in check? And even Kenny Clark as well. He'll talk to Green Bay media later on. So again, it's just going to be a fascinating game on Sunday Night Football. So we'll get ready to head to Dallas on Sunday, and we'll see what happens between the Packers and the Cowboys. Guys, thank you so much as always, and thank you for checking out the Green 19 podcast. For Ryan Wood, Tom Silverstein, I'm Dominique Yates.